Hey everybody, surprise! Buy Black Podcast, the voice of Black business, is coming to you with a special End of Black History Month episode. The show is still on hold until we come back for season number 2. However, this morning, I was going through, as I do every day, my Facebook memories, because you never know what kind of gems you'll find in the posts that you made in yesteryear that you can repurpose and put right back out as if they were new, because you probably have new friends and new people who haven't seen it before and they still need the information. Well, as I was doing that, it popped up a video that I did on Facebook Live on February 28th of 2017, which was about 5 months before I launched Buy Black Podcast. And I did the video because it was the end of Black History Month, and I was, as I still am, very tired of the fact that the only thing that my kids learn about Black history in school is Martin and Rosa Parks. So I had put together a PowerPoint presentation. I went and did some research on 5 different personalities from Black history that I wanted to highlight. And so I did that, and I made this video, and I put it out on Facebook, and here we are 2 years later, and the video popped up, and I said, man, that was actually some pretty good stuff. It's information that we still need today. So I pulled the video down from Facebook. I didn't pull it down. It's still up there. But I pulled the video from Facebook. I separated out the audio track and cleaned it up a little bit. The audio is still not great. This was before my podcast days. It was before this microphone. I was literally using just a wireless USB headset for my audio on that. So audio quality is not going to be great. However, it's a little throwback Thursday blast from the past. 2 years ago, Black History Month tribute, and we are going to go ahead and listen to that for the episode today. And don't be surprised if at any point during the next few months, when things like this pop up where I know there's just some good information I want to share with y'all, I'll just pop up with an episode. So don't unsubscribe. Don't delete me from the feed, because you never know when some good stuff is going to pop up. And honestly, I feel like this was some really good content, even though I literally had no idea what I was doing at the time. You're going to hear me reference GPS Your Success. That was the little brand name that I had come together with back then. And that was really around, making a long-term plan and then building a GPS map towards accomplishing your goals. And so that's what I was going with. It was really corny. You know what? Whatever. I didn't even take it out of the audio because I'm not ashamed. Everything that you do in the past is what leads you to the great things you do in the future. And so without further ado and me running my mouth, we're going to jump right into this audio. I hope you guys enjoy it. And definitely, if you want more of this or you have other types of information that you want, shoot me an email. It's still Gerald at buyblackpodcast.com. And I would love to keep throwing out a little bit of content that you guys want to hear or you guys want to learn more about while we're in the middle of the break heading into the next season. All right, that's it. Let's get it going. All right. Good evening, guys, and welcome to a special edition of the GPS Your Success live video broadcast. Tonight is the last night of Black History Month, and so because of that, I wanted to do a quick video featuring 5 historical figures who had a powerful influence on the United States, but who we rarely get to hear about. I haven't done a lot for Black History Month this month. I've been busy doing a lot of travel and everything like that, but I didn't want the month to slip by without having that conversation. So I've got a quick presentation that I'm going to go through with you guys. It's got a few pictures. It's got a little bit of history and information in it. You won't be able to see me while the presentation is up, but I will be back. So let's not spend too much time talking about it. Let's just be about it. All right, so this presentation is called More Than Malcolm, or Martin, Malcolm, and Maya, 5 Powerful Figures in Black History That Textbooks Overlook. So the first one of these figures, and somebody let me know if this is showing up, because I can't see it on my Facebook page that I've got up right now. But Oh, yep, I can see me. Okay, sweet. So the first person that we are going to talk about is somebody called Benjamin Pat Singleton. He was born in 1809 and he died in 1900. So Pap was actually one of the earliest African Americans to lead this exodus out of the South for Black Americans to the West and set up communities in non-Southern areas of the country in the post-Civil War era. So, like we said before, he was born in 1809. He was born into slavery in Tennessee, and throughout his life, he escaped slavery several times over, was resold into slavery, escaped, and eventually he got out of Tennessee. But in 1862, he returned to Tennessee while the Union was occupying the state, and he attempted to establish his community there. But in a very short period of time, he concluded that Black people would never actually achieve economic equality in the South so long as it was dominated by the folks who had previously owned them. So instead, he started to recruit families to move away from Tennessee, away from the South, and out west to places like Kansas, where there were opportunities to actually do homestead and get real estate, and then basically build your home. So he recruited thousands of people to move from the South out west to Kansas, and then from there they started building homes, they started building businesses, they started building a community, and in that community they were promoting business ownership and then internal circulation of wealth, and they built a very prosperous community in Kansas. So Pap's communities in Kansas were one of the precursors to later communities that were built in places like Langston, Oklahoma, and Greenwood, Oklahoma, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this conversation. But a huge thing about Pap is that he was one of the earliest voices for Black nationalism, which is kind of a movement of internal patriotism, if you will, taking care of your own. He coordinated Black-owned businesses and Black-supported, self-supported communities. So the next major figure that is often overlooked that we're going to talk about is someone named Noble Drew Ali, born in 1886. He died in 1929. He was significant because he was actually the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. He founded that in Newark, New Jersey, and within just a few years, it had grown to multiple industrial cities that are near the East Coast. Significantly about Noble Drew Ali, he was inspired by Marcus Garvey, and he carried with him a message of pride, of self-determination, personal transformation, and then internal self-sufficiency of the community. He also wanted to provide a sense of identity to Black people living in the West who had our identities basically stripped from us and replaced with the slave identity. He wanted to restore an internal sense of pride in who we are. So Noble Drew Ali was actually one of the people who inspired Elijah Muhammad. And of course, we know Elijah Muhammad was the creator of the Nation of Islam, which, along with the Moorish Science Temple of America, is still a large part of the American Black religious community. So the next person on our list of 5 powerful figures that are often overlooked in Black history is Claudette Colvin, born in 1939. So very interesting about Claudette. She was actually arrested in Montgomery, Alabama, for refusing to give up her seat on a bus to a white woman. I don't know if this sounds familiar to you guys, like any other stories that are out there, but interesting about Claudette is that she did it 9 months before Rosa Parks, and she was 15 years old at the time. So when Claudette actually got arrested and thrown off the bus, her ordeal was actually the thing that sparked that community in Montgomery, Alabama
to gear up for that fight. And it actually inspired that later set of bus boycotts and the Rosa Parks incident, which eventually led to the Supreme Court overturning the constitutionality of having that law. So it's really interesting when you look at what Claudette did and at what age. And I really like this quote that I was able to find by her. She was doing an interview with Newsweek, and she told him, it's like, I felt like Sojourner Truth was pushing down on one shoulder and Harriet Tubman was pushing down on the other, saying, sit down, girl. So I was glued to my seat. And that's the kind of power that you've got to have. It's like, understand the people whose shoulders you're standing on and who you're doing whatever it is that you're doing for. So it's a very interesting story. All right, the next one hits really close to home for me. Daisy Bates, 1914 to 1999. Daisy is from Arkansas, my hometown, and she was actually instrumental in the integration of my alma mater, Little Rock Central High School. She was actually the organizer and supporter of the Little Rock Nine, which integrated Little Rock Central High School in 1957. If you're not familiar with that story, there's actually a movie that they made out of it. It's called The Ernest Green Story, but because he was the one senior out of that group who graduated that year. But basically, this desegregation movement in Little Rock for Little Rock Central was so fired that the governor actually called in the National Guard to protect the school and prevent these 9 students from getting into the school. It became a national event, and shortly after that, the president basically federalized the National Guard and gave them new orders to protect those students and make sure that they could get into the school. So very, very interestingly, these same National Guard troops who had been there to prevent the students from getting in immediately were turned over, and they were there to make sure that the students were protected in the school. Another thing that people don't know about Daisy Bates is that almost 2 decades before that happened, she had actually founded a newspaper, a civil rights newspaper in Arkansas called the Arkansas State Press, long before the civil rights movement became a national thing. So she was a lifelong political activist. She moved to Washington, D.C. in the 1960s. She worked in the Lyndon Johnson administration. She worked in the Democratic National Convention. She worked through multiple presidential administrations fighting for equality until she finally passed in 1999. And this is a quick picture here of Little Rock Central High School in 1957 with those National Guard troops there to either protect the students or protect the school, depending on exactly when this image was taken. Hold on one second for me. So the last person on our list is W Gurley. And I told you earlier we were going to talk about Greenwood, Oklahoma. So Greenwood, Oklahoma is actually a section in the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it was the location of something that was known as Black Wall Street. W Gurley was the founder of that community. And it's really interesting how that happened. So he actually purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa. I believe it was in 1889 or 1906. I think it was 1906 where he bought this particular sect of land. And on that land, he built homes and he built commercial real estate. And then he actually put in a restriction that that land could only be sold to other African Americans. In a lot of other communities in the nation at that time, the land and the locations where African American communities lived was owned by white people. And so those African Americans rented, and the stores in their communities were owned by white people outside the community. The land that they lived on was owned by people outside the community. So they really had no ownership and no ability to build wealth. I don't know if that sounds like anything that's going on today. But what W Gurley did is he set aside and said, this will be owned by black people. And the businesses will be owned by black people. And since this is a segregated community and they won't allow us to go anywhere else or do business anywhere else or live anywhere else, then we're just going to own the place where we live, and our dollars are going to circulate here because we can't spend them anywhere else anyway. What happened was that community flourished and became one of the most wealthy communities in the United States, bar none, regardless of race. It's really cool. In this basically 40-acre area, there were 600 businesses, there were 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, 2 movie theaters, and 6 private airplanes that were owned by people in that community. They had a hospital, they had a bank, they had a post office, schools, libraries, law offices, and even a bus system. And all of it was owned by people inside the community. And so that money just continued to circulate and grow right there in the community. As a lot of people know, and if you didn't know this, you can look it up and find more information about it, that entire community was wiped out in 2 days in 1921. One of the stories that we've heard over and over again in the United States over the years, a black boy was accused of saying something to a white woman, and that accusation was, of course, grounds for going in and murdering hundreds of people, firebombing the entire section of town, burning all the businesses and the homes to the ground, and basically leaving this entire community in ashes over the course of 2 days. This is not the only time that that's happened in the United States, but it is one of the most well-known. Another one being the Rosewood massacre that happened. I think there was a movie that was made about that not too long ago as well. But it's just really interesting story about the person who founded Black Wall Street. So those are the 5 not so well-known black figures in history who had a powerful impact on the United States. And as I promised, here are the references to the primary information where I found the information about these folks. And also, as always, my contact information. You can always find my website, hapticconsulting.com. You can email me if you want to talk more about these subjects or the other subjects I normally talk about at gpsyoursuccess@hapticconsulting.com. And as always, on Facebook at GPS Your Success, or on my personal site, which is Gerald W. Jones II. So with that, guys, just want to close up the video by pointing out that a majority of the people who are on this list had something in common, and it was economics. And it was a self-sufficient form of economics. They understood that if you want to be able to control your destiny, you've got to be able to control the land and the money and the businesses. And so they didn't wait for the government to come in and say, you can have this. They didn't beg people for a seat at the table. They just said, I'm going to go create something. Come with me if you want to, and we're going to make something good happen for ourselves. That's something that we lost along the way in our community in the United States. We have lost that self-determination, that drive to own and to teach and to prosper without waiting for somebody else to do it for us or asking someone for crumbs. I personally feel like we need to get back to that. We need to find and focus on ways to get our community back to the point of business ownership, community ownership, and internal responsibility and support. I'm all about that. That's what I feel like a huge part of my mission is, and I hope that I can find a lot of like-minded people to help me carry that forward and make it happen. So, hey, if you've watched this whole video, it's been going on for a while, so thank you very much for your support. If you watch it later, again, thanks so much for spending the time and your support. I love the comments. Please give me comments and feedback on the type of information that you guys want to see, or if you've got more knowledge or information you'd love to share, I'm all about it. But until next time, guys,
Happy February, happy Black History Month. Can't wait to jump into March. We'll talk to you next time. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely shoot me an email. Let me know. Again, Gerald at BuyBlackPodcast.com. Also, I'm throwing the invitation out there again. If there is other historical information that you want, other questions that you have, other cool kind of educational content about us and our past that you would like to know more about in between this season and the next season of Buy Black Podcast, do not hesitate to email and just shoot me those questions. Shoot me your ideas. I love taking a little break from the work I'm doing and just going out and doing some research and putting out good information that we need to know about our brothers and sisters, both past and present. So throwing that invitation out there, it is there for you. Please take me up on it. But until then, I am going to get back to work. Happy February, happy Black History Month, and let's keep making this 2019 amazing going forward. All right. We'll talk to you soon.